Hi Chris.
Hello.
We now have Chris, Sales Director at SilverDoor, to give us his feedback on what it's like to have placement students in the business. Okay Chris, so what is the value to SilverDoor to employ a few students?
Mostly fresh ideas and an extra pair of hands, enthusiasm, breath of fresh air. And I think when they join us, it sort of cheers everyone up a little bit, having some new characters in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when they come, do you feel they adequately prepared to embark on some projects, or did you feel you had to train them for some time?
I think it's quite difficult to expect a 20-year-old undergraduate to be prepared for the full rigours of office life. But I think if I could say a couple of things, I would say I would like them to be better prepared in terms of understanding office etiquette and business rules and maybe business dress even. Those are probably the things that they could be taught, but I think most of the things can't be taught. You know, how do you prepare a 20-year-old to go from being a student to then doing quite a tough 9-hour day, commuting and living with people they perhaps don't know, and making that transition is a very difficult thing. So I think, how can you brief, how can you prepare students for that? I think all you can do is try and take on people who are open and enthusiastic and open to adapting to that kind of life. That's the best that you can hope for, I think.
And what benefits do you feel the placement students have brought to SilverDoor so far?
Bring lots of new ideas and different ways of doing things. You can often do something for so long and then you don't realise that actually it's not the best way of doing things. So there are lots of examples of them changing the way we do things slightly, which is great.
And I believe you actually go even further. You actually help them to live together and offer accommodation.
That's right. We did make that change last year because I think it's fair to say that last year I wasn't that happy with the way it affected their working life. So people were travelling for maybe 3 hours a day to commute into the office, or they lived with people that they weren't happy with, in shared housing, or their cars broke down. So that was kind of impacting them quite seriously. So they were coming in tired, stressed out from travelling, or late, or not. So their attendance was affected and their whole experience was affected. And I didn't want that impact. I felt that they shouldn't have to worry about that side of things. It's tough enough, isn't it, making that transition without all the worry of having to find accommodation, share with people you don't know, or commute for an hour and a half, and all the stress that comes along with that. So we chose a 5-bedroom house that's quite close to here, but it's affordable, and I think it's worked really well. I think it's really made a massive change in the way that they're not worried, they're not travelling too far, they're not thinking about whether they can afford it or not. And also I think the fact that they're all together and sharing means, especially initially, they don't feel isolated, they don't feel homesick, they're all in it together a little bit. So I think those first few weeks, it's quite tough for them, isn't it? Going from student lifestyle to working in an office Monday to Friday, being away from their friends, from their towns, that can be a tough experience. I think if you can share it with others, then it makes it much easier, doesn't it?
So you would recommend companies to employ placement students?
Yes, definitely. I think there are lots and lots of benefits, and I think if I think about why I would recommend it most, I think that when you get to the end of the placement year and you look at some of the things that they've achieved and all the work you've done, you start to think, well, how would you manage without them? And so you start, well, as it's turned out for us, each year we take on more than we did the previous year. So I think that's a good testimony to the fact that it's a really good thing to do, and it really helps the business a lot and helps you to have that flexibility, having that extra pair of hands. I think most companies would say that there are always times when they need an extra pair of hands, that they're always struggling to keep up with their workload and to find time to do everything they need to do, and I think it gives you that extra.
Excellent. And And I believe you even employed some students.
That's right, yes. For the first time we did. And they did their placements, went back, finished their degrees, and then came back. And that for me is a great success story, because that means that at the end of their placement they thought, I've learned a lot, and I love living in West London, in Chiswick, and I really like the company. And it has lots of knock-on benefits, doesn't it? Because then you don't have recruitment costs, you're bringing people into the business who don't need training, not so much, and they know exactly what they're in for. So I think you couldn't get to 3 months into their permanent employment and they couldn't say an awful lot. They could say, oh, it wasn't what I was expecting. You're not going to get that, because they know what they're coming back to. So it's really satisfying when the placement students come back to work. Yeah, it's worked really well.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I mean, it's a real success story, I think, for SilverDoor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.